this is Kalamazini, and this time the greatest day in history and games is July 15, 1099, the day when the great holy city, sacred to the three monotheistic religions of the world, Jerusalem, fell to the soldiers of the First Crusade. The strategic situation in the Middle East after the rise of Islam was quite dire for the Christians. The ancient bulwark of the Eastern Roman Empire had done its best to contain the growth of the new religion and protect its citizens from the Muslim expansion, with mixed success. Actually, the Byzantine Emperor John I had reconquered some of the lost territories by the end of the 10th century, but the disaster of Manzikert in 1071 marked a new crisis due to the energetic and aggressive Seljuk Turkish warriors that had taken control of Islam. A new dynasty then emerged in Byzantium, with Emperor Alexis I Komnenos, who immediately looked west for help. The empire was in great danger, and all Christendom had to come to its rescue against the pagan hordes coming from the east, and Rome answered the call from Byzantium. During the Council of Clermont in 1095, Pope Urban II proclaimed the First Crusade, a blessed expedition to liberate the Holy Land from the infidels and reclaim places like Bethlehem and Jerusalem for the true faith, and many answered the call from Rome. The first to go were poor and hopeless people led by minor nobles looking for fortune, an unruly and totally out-of-control mob that roamed Eastern Europe, massacring Jews whenever possible, reaching Anatolia, and was immediately slaughtered by the capable and disciplined Turkish forces. After them, however, many major representatives of the great powers of Europe, often dispossessed of their rights to the respective thrones because of family issues or court intrigues, organized a much more credible crusade of the princes, gathering thousands of well-trained soldiers and leaving for Byzantium. Though they were greeted by a thankful but a bit suspicious Komnenos, who feared, not totally out of reason, that this new mass of armed and powerful warriors looking for conquest and riches could quickly become a threat to the Eastern Empire itself. So after having acted an oath of fealty to Byzantium, the emperor was more than happy to see the Western Christians, Franks, Normans, Germans, Italians, and whatever else, leave the city of Constantine to attack the infidels under a simple pact. The liberated imperial territories will come back to the control of Byzantium. The conquered lands belonging to the Muslims will become independent Christian kingdoms. Once having reached Anatolia, the Christian leaders Godfrey of Bouillon, Bohemond and Tancred of Taranto, Raymond of Toulouse, Robert of Normandy, son of William the Conqueror, proceeded to systematically take out the major Muslim cities of the coast: Antioch, Edessa, Tyre, Tripoli. All of them fell, both due to the prowess of the Christian knights and the internal rivalry of the Muslim emirs. Jerusalem was reached only in June 1099, after many arguments between the Christian commanders about who had to lead the expedition. Anyway, the siege began, and almost ended overnight. Demoralized, exhausted, fighting against diseases and Muslim raids, totally under-equipped, the first Crusaders were in no shape to conduct a great and long siege. Also, rumors of a Muslim Fatimid army coming north from Egypt began to worry the Christian warriors. But then, on the horizon, appeared fresh Genoese troops under Guglielmo Imbriaco. The new leader brought with him also a precious asset, the wood of his own ships, dismantled and immediately reused to create the much-needed siege towers. The assault on the city was brief and violent, but not so much as what happened next when Jerusalem finally fell. Much of the Muslim population and almost the entirety of the Jewish community that had fought against the Christian invaders was mercilessly slaughtered. The massacre was shocking even for the standard of the times, and still today remains a troublesome memory. Anyway, Jerusalem was now in Christian hands, and will remain so for almost a century, when the great Muslim leader Salah ad-Din reconquered it in 1187. The long and fascinating history of the Christian kingdoms of Outremer, as the region became known, had just begun. And speaking about the conquest of Jerusalem, today's game is Crusader Kingdoms, Worthington Publishing. Crusader Kingdoms is an evolution of Taifa, a game about the struggle between Christian kings and Muslim emirs in the Middle Ages in Spain by Jesus Peralta Garcia. In it, 1 to 4 players will compete in successive crusades or jihads to conquer or defend the Holy Land by laying siege to cities and castles, using troops and special assets or events determined by cards, and keeping the roads open for trade and pilgrims. The game is very fast, easy to learn and visually attractive, but also full of interesting subtleties, since even inside the Christian or the Muslim faction, individual leaders will have to carefully choose how much to cooperate for the common goal and how much to compete for personal glory. This is a very accessible title that you will surely enjoy with non-wargamers and your family too. A nice way to introduce your friends and loved ones to the great fun that can be had by playing with history. So that's it for this time. See you on the next battlefields. Ciao!
Jeff is back and he's looking great with a first look at the last 100 yards expansion airborne over Europe on the Gaming Gang. And don't forget to check out Sunday at 6:30 Eastern Time. I will be having an interview with Mike Denson. Marco Omnigamer checks out a game by Predrag and Dragan Lazovic. Age of Dogfights, World War II. I got it. Do you? No, you don't got it because I got the demo edition, but I'm gonna get it. Will you? And the man overviewing the Spanish front, Julius Fairfax. Checked out, I guess it's written in Spanish, NACE. NAC War Games. NACE. I might be wrong. Julius, please forgive me. Even Dolges looks at his top 5 shelf of shame games. Holy moly! Also, The Dark Summer turns 1 and 2, and he's unboxing NATO. Combat Board Games checks out Ace of Aces, Jet Eagles, Modern Air Combat game. I don't think I have that one. I can't tell you how much I love this guy, Jay of Poindexter Games. Is continuing Avalon Hill's London's Burning playthrough. If you haven't seen it, reminiscent of B-17, Queen of the Skies by STUKAJOE. Counterproductive Games is checking out A Pig Back from Hell by Devil Pig Games. Gandalf is with a man on Little Wars TV, how to film a war game. This is a free video guide. Mo of Mo's Game Table looks at Lebensraum. Eesh, that's bad, man. I think I knew a guy from Lebensraum. Was it Lebensraum? Lebensborn. Oh man, yeah, I knew a guy from Lebensborn. Anyways, Lebensraum, The War for Europe, 1941 to 1945, from Compass Games. Also, South Africa, Vestige of Colonialism, from Strategy and Tactics. The lights, the voice, the production of Seek Out and Play. How to play? The Shores of Tripoli. Dr. Cody of the Discriminating Gamer checks out Twilight Imperium 4th Edition, Prophecy of Kings. This is an expansion. It'll probably extend the game another 22 days. And the man famously known as Calandale, Enrico Viglino, looks like he's playing with his hair. And then he gives us an 8-minute Empire quick hit. Also, he plays Settlers of Catan. I don't like that game at all. That beautiful Frenchman of Homo Ludens, Fred Serval, is with Scott Moore. This war without an enemy, he teaches and plays with the designer. Obviously, that's why he's got Scott Moore on. Not moron, Scott Moore on. Bloody hell. And the cop that is Wayne Hansen. On his Let's Play overview and review, he does the 8th Air Force. Also, he chats Kickstarter with Spruance by DVG, and he plays Pickett's Charge, The Last Attack at Gettysburg. The man who is STUKAJOE, Jose Ruiz, checks out Cuba Libre, Castro's Insurgency, 1957 to 1958. When I went to Cuba, I had a Cuba Libre. Didn't look like a game, but after a few, everything looked like a game. The Grognard that is Jim Ozarski, voted by you on No Enemies Here. Grognard of the Year plays the Battle of Gettysburg for Altar of Freedom. And in the channel of Wars of the World, it's when World War II raids go horribly wrong. Man, that's a masochistic type of video. But hey, I'm GIMPY of the GIMPY Gamer. You think this guy does videos? Holy moly, how we became GIMPY? I gotta check that out. I haven't, and I will check that out. Also, he's taking a look at part 4 of Company of Heroes, going big. Plus, Point Blank, a game by Sean Drulinger, going to be published by Lock and Load Publishing, Bootcamp. Also, Age of Dogfights, World War II, new rules change. And, ladies and gentlemen, a GIMPY. And I am extremely happy to see Sergeant Joe Clifford Faust taking on Tank Duel, alternate solo system, and brief review. Glad to see you back, Joe. Hey, we gotta get in touch, man. You're part of the Fokker Circus. On the center flank of the Italian front, Riccardo Mazzini is taking care of a Worthington publishing game called Dawn of Battle. Illuminating Rounds is back with the quarterfinals, and this week they take a look at, okay, this is ASL Talk, IR 2021 quarterfinals. And the man who calls himself My Own Worst Enemy, he visits Armchair Dragoons, where My Own Worst Enemy has its own sub-forum. No, that's completely wrong. What he does is the gameplay of the wars of Marcus Aurelius. Yes, the latter. Scream! Arm! Heart! How to play! That's what you get to see on JK War Games, a game published by Tiny Battle Publishing. And Tony of Tony's Board Life plays a game I really enjoyed playing, Picket Duty, Scenario 2, Midday. And Counterattack, Ukraine 43, turn 5, and he says the Soviets appear to be about to bust several white holes in the front if the Germans cannot get their act together. Well, hindsight is 90-60. And on the Italian front, Mauro Faina with episode 98 of Il Giannizzero Nero, Finale di Stagione. He's saying it's the end of a season. I don't know what he's talking about. Also, he's live, and he's taking a look at Last Chance for Victory, a Gettysburg game. And episode 97 with Il Giannizzero, they talk about Gettysburg. Why is Gettysburg such a big thing last week? Because in history, in this same time, parallel universes, people were dying. And the man who goes by the name of Jeff checks out Storm Above the Reich, a combined playthrough, 44E, Mission 2, Finis. That's Latin 2 for it's over. Stigler, the man with an opinion, and don't get caught dead saying anything wrong around Stigler. He will be checking out on Stigler for details number 16E, Donau Front. Turns 2. Actually, he's doing a whole poop load of Donau Front Red Thrust Recon. Robert Carroll, my consigliere, checks out Toten Sonntag, the first battle of Sidier's Egg of Lock and Load Publishing. Also, Mike Denson's Last 100 Yards. Did I mention he will be on In Conversation? I forgot the name of my show. On In Conversation, Sunday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Also, the consigliere's exploration of Battle of the American Revolution series. A GMT game, obviously, and KilRoy goes off the shelf, on the shelf. You figure it out. The guy's a lawyer. He knows words. And Patrick teaches us Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Command and Colors Ancients. I guess it's Scenario 214, Solaris, or Solaris. Actually, if you're going to say it in Latin, Silarus. So, yeah. And the wise guy of history is giving us first shots at Antietam. None But Heroes, this is a live playthrough. Also, the Battle of Antietam, a preview. I'm going backwards here. And he's checking out all the Gettysburg stuff, that is, the Peach Orchard. And also, the Peach Orchard, and Cemetery Hill, and something else. I don't know my Gettysburg too well, but please check it out. With harsh rules breaking down board games, let's learn to play Command and Colors Ancient, a game designed by Richard Borg and published by GIMPY. And the minister, that is Joel Toppin, with Wing Leader Fortress Rabal Mission number 1. This is a game designed by, say it with me, Lee Brimicum Wood. Must have been long for his mom to call him when he's running away. You want to learn your tactics? Go to Legendary Tactics with Diplomacy and How to Win as Russia. Also, Twilight Struggle, Strategy. How do you win? How do you lose? Well, Twilight Struggle. You want to lose? Play with someone who knows the cards. You'll never win. Huh? Anyways, Axis and Allies, full game playthrough. This is part 6. And also, should you buy this game? This is a review of Fort Sumter, a game designed by Mark Herman, who was on Everything You Wanted to Know About War Games But Were Afraid to Ask with Artie and myself this past Wednesday. And World War II Solitaire Board Game Channel. You know what? I like this guy. And that's all. What is he doing? He's doing the 20th Air Force, an unboxing of Fortress games. This looks like an old game. Is it? Watch it.
Hello everyone, this is Michel Leviathan-Sorbet from the Polish YouTube channel Wojennik TV. As always, here is my weekly roundup of the content published on Wojennik TV during the last 7 days. Last Sunday I started with a top 3. As each month I presented the 3 games that I have most heavily played or most enjoyed during the past month. During this video I have spoken about Chronicles of Crime 1900, then about Castle Eater, and finally about Talisman, but not the English version, the old Polish version published at the beginning of the 90s. Well, this might be a very surprising choice because Talisman is a game which is very controversial, but I very heavily played it during my life. This was one of my first modern board games back in the beginning of the 90s in Poland. Additionally, this is a game which I very strongly enhanced because in the mid 2000s I created and then I published hundreds, thousands of additional cards for the Polish edition of Talisman, which was released under the name of Magia i Miecz. So this game is very important for me. This is also a game which I very much enjoyed with my son. We love playing it from time to time. And in June, I decided to print and to prepare all the previous cards, which I have never printed before. So I printed more than 600, 700 cards, which I created back in 2007 and 8. And I really enjoyed this a lot. So I spent a lot of time enhancing my Talisman or Magia i Miecz universe. On Tuesday, I released the video in English, and this was an interesting video because this was an interview with Andrew Rourke, the designer of Coalitions. We had a great chat. Andrew agreed for this interview. He answered my questions concerning both his initial ideas of this project, then how the game evolved. Then he also explained what are the most important aspects of this title. So this is a game still on Kickstarter. If you want to know more about Coalitions, I invite you to take a look both at the Kickstarter page as well as at my interview. On Wednesday, the Polish unboxing, and this time I opened the box of The King is Dead, the second edition released by Osprey Games, and which will be released in a Polish version by Ogre Games. So this is also an interesting game, quite easy to learn, but quite entertaining for 2 to 4 players. Finally, on Friday, I released my Polish review, and this time I once more presented a video concerning Down in Flames Locked On from Danversen Games, but this time it was a video which was focused strictly on the solitaire mode for this game. So if you want to see how this game works solitaire, you can take a look at it, although this is a video in Polish, but an English version of the same video will soon follow. So those were the 4 videos published on Wojennik TV during the last week. Thank you a lot for watching this brief roundup. I wish you an excellent weekend, great gaming, and see you next time.
Dave here. Welcome to the Centurions review, the punk rock band of Wargame Review. Institution's first game we reviewed on our website is Source of the Nile. It's an old Avalon Hill game that's about exploring Africa, encountering natives, and you have random events and stuff. Really cool game. I like it much better than Avalon Hill Outdoor Survival. And then we did a first look at SPI's Frigate Sea War in the Age of Sail. I believe this is from 1974. It's about naval battles in the 18th and 19th centuries, and it has plenty of scenarios, and rules are easy to learn. And last we did Wargame Chat number 16, and in this one we talked about types of wargamers, and what we mean by that is the different personalities that, for example, wargamers have, or board gamers have, or role players have, and so forth. Really interesting episode. Check it out. Thanks for watching, and have a good evening.
Lock and Load Publishing has a couple of videos out. The win-loss records in Lock and Load's tactical display. There's a little video there. I'm sure it's the OG. I didn't have time to watch it, OG. I'm sorry. And how to download and find workshop scenarios. Also, a look at the new battle generator and campaign of Lock and Load Tactical and Lock and Load Tactical digital gameplay of NAM. But this came out 2 weeks ago, so please don't disregard, but do so. Hex to Hex is tackling OCS and your extender. Here's how to use the extender for trace supply. For you grognards, check out Hex to Hex. And those dastardly rascals of the Players Aid are balancing. Look, balance versus realism. Yeah, they're balancing. This is a monthly debriefing, episode 6. Also, they're reviewing the Virgin Queen from GMT Games. And a review of AmRev, American Revolution. Stop with this AmRev and cutting words because I'll read it verbatim. Tri-Pack from GMT, American Revolution, that is. And by the way, Grant, thanks for all the videos you said you were gonna send me, you rat. And here we go, people. It's the news without the blues. Artie of ARDWULF'S LAIR is on a tear. He's unboxing Atlantic Chase by Jerry White. Did you ever notice that Jerry White looks like Ron Howard? But I digress. Also, he's having a war game sale. And I'll tell you something, being a patron of Artie, I got a 1-day advance. So you think about being a patron. And also counter-clipping Europa versus OCS. And the unboxing of the Third Winter, a game published by MMP, and everything you wanted to know about war games but were afraid to ask, with Artie, myself, and more people. And in this case, more people is Mark Herman. Why don't you go check it out? We're talking movies.
Hello all! Today, Kilroy goes off the shelf on expansions. Now, what do I mean by expansions? Well, just that. It expands the game. It's in addition to the original game, and it adds additional content, whether that be, new scenarios, new gameplay, maybe fixing or streamlining previous gameplay, fixing some rules. I've got a segment where I talked about errata. You can go check that out. Or update kits. You can go check that out. I'm really not talking about either one of those. I'm talking about intentionally building a package that has additional content that you can add to the game. Now, in the general board gaming hobby, let's use air quotes there, general board gaming hobby, expansions are common. They're expected. There are certain aspects of the general board gaming hobby that require expansions. If you go into the living card game series from Fantasy Flight, and other game mechanisms use this as well, but expansion is the norm. I mean, if you started and stopped with just the original game, your replayability and your satisfaction with that game content is going to be pretty low. You need to have these extra and continual expansions to get the full feel of it. And expansions are just, in that general board gaming hobby, oh, I gotta use your quotes again, it's very common. Now, in the wargaming hobby, or our segment of the hobby, it's not as common. It's still there, but it hasn't become as big of a requirement or a need or desired as you see in the general board gaming hobby. It's still there, but it usually kind of comes in two flavors. There's the expansion side, which is relatively small, and then you have like the series side. And series, in my opinion, are really kind of probably not expansions. Those are just a continuation of the game or the series with you know, pretty much standalone content. So if it's standalone, meaning that you can play it by itself and do not need to use the original, I really don't treat that as an expansion. I treat that as a standalone or an extension of the series, okay? My first experience with war game expansions was Cross of Iron, and this is, you know, way back in the 80s. So expansions in the war games have been around for a long time. In fact, they very well may predate the general board gaming hobby in that regard. So you had Cross of Iron and Crescendo of Doom, which were expansions to Squad Leader. And so what these added, you know, new content. They added, you know, new boards, they added new rules, they added new units, they added some different countries, they added, you know, tanks and artillery and the like. And so it truly was an expansion. You needed to have Squad Leader to play. In fact, you know, this is the prototype of the primary expansions in our industry. This gave birth to, you know, Advanced Squad Leader. You know, this is the starter kit. I don't have the Advanced Squad Leader, you know, notebook and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But Advanced Squad Leader is the living card game version of expansions in the wargaming universe. You know, there's so much out there for Advanced Squad Leader. That is, you need to have the core set to play, and what it is, it adds on maps, it adds on units, it adds on different battles, it adds on, you know, more and more content in an expansion type format. And in that regard, you know, small unit tactical games, you know, platoon, squad level, even individual or man-to-man level, those are very ripe for expansions. And those are some of our more common expansions that we see in this game, in our industry. You know, Texas Arrows is an expansion for Band and Brothers, which is a, you know, small unit tactical game. You know, Warfighter, which is an individual. Look at that. Look at those kits there. Those are pretty big boxes there. Footlockers, I think is what they call those. Those are just chocked full of expansions, you know, additional cards that add different forces and different scenarios and the like. So, you know, again, that really follows kind of the living card game model of the general board gaming universe into the wargaming universe. But, you know, there still are other expansions in our hobby. I mean, my second experience with expansions was Attack, you know, from Eagle Games, and you needed to have the core game in order to play this. This basically added on, you know, the rest of the world and added on some different rules for naval and the like, but you needed to have the core game to play this. This was not a standalone, and it came in a huge box. I mean, this is basically, you know, kind of a combination of Risk and Axis and Allies taken to a different level. But other, you know, games are ripe for expansion as well, and air games. I mean, this was my second expansion that I ever encountered, Dauntless, which was an expansion to Air Force. You needed to have the Air Force game to play it because it had the counters and had the map boards, so to speak. They're pretty nondescript map boards, but it added a whole bunch of new aircraft to the mix in that regard. You know, in that same vein, Wing Leader is just full of expansion. This is Wing Leader Victories, and there's also another edition which kind of goes to the later years of the war, is Wing Leader Supremacy. It's full of expansions. It just keeps adding more and more content. So, you know, small unit tactical and air games are very, you know, they really lend themselves to having expansions that can be added to it. In that same vein, you have, oh my God, this is heavy. World at War, Storming the Gap. So the World at War series had expansion, but then when they came out with World War E5, they came out with this as part of, I think, the Kickstarter, but also for sale as well as the expansion pack. Again, chock full of content. Again, small unit tactical lends itself to it because you can just add a scenario. You can add a few maps, you can add some new counters or some new country units, and you can add a few scenarios, and wham bam, you got yourself an expansion. So, you know, that is where a lot of our expansions in the industry are today. But in some of the bigger games, there are expansions as well. I mean, Labyrinth is, basically continuing on into, started in 2001 and covered right after when the war against terror started, but then has continued on. They come out with an update of cards, or a set of cards that brings the conflict forward. So you have a continuation of the game through, and the cards are events that have, events that have taken place during that time period to kind of give you a effect of the history of what's going on. So they have these sets of cards that bring it on into the future. So that's full of expansions. I mean, you need to have the base game to play it. You can't play it without. Another series that lives on expansion is the Command and Color series. This is Command and Color Ancients, expansion number 1, which you need to have the game, but there's also Command and Colors. There's Command and Colors Medieval now, but there's Command and Colors Napoleonic. They have expansions that you need to have the base game, and then you add these expansions on. They're going to bring in new units, new scenarios, and maybe some new rules that are specific to those scenarios or to those units. Again, a ripe use of example or expansions in our hobby. Also, the Great Battles of History. I kind of moved this down because you can't see it. Great Battles of History. I mean, this is SPQR. There's also the Great Battles of Alexander. But, I mean, they had expansions for each of those in the series that came out with and they would usually come out in a Ziploc with new rules or new modules, maybe new maps, of course, and counter sheet or so of new units, and you can add on to the game. You have to have the core game, but then you can add on to the game in that respect. So that's kind of how our hobby does expansions. There are examples of expansions. It's not as prevalent as it is in the general board gaming hobby, but it is still there. And in some instances, like Warfighter, it's there with a vengeance. So what do you guys think about expansions? Do you like expansions? Do you like this concept of having a core game and then adding new content that, hopefully is a little bit less expensive, but you still get enough bang for your buck in the Ziploc baggie or the package to add on to that? What do you think about that? As I said, Squad Leader has been the primary force in that, and small unit tactical games really lend themselves to that. But overall, we don't have as many expansions, I don't think, as in relation or proportionally to the other parts of the hobby, but we still have it. And what do you think about it? Thought I'd share that with you today.
Another week, another show. This is unbelievable. I love doing this. I've done a show a week for 4 years. Who does that? Me. But anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Please think about being a patron on this show. It really, really helps with lots of things. And don't forget, Sunday we are doing In Conversation, that is, Mike Denson and myself are doing an interview, and we're going to talk about Mike, who he is, and his new expansion to the 100 longest yard, the last 100 yards. Longest, I'm thinking of football. Airborne. So check it out. Don't forget to check out everything you wanted to know about war games, but we're afraid to ask. We had Mark Herman on. It was a blast. We were talking about war movies. And Mark says some stories, and that's why you have him on, because of the stories. But anyways, guys, thanks a lot. Have a great weekend. I just took my second shot of COVID Monday. I still feel it today. I'm getting better. God, man, why does it affect me like that? But anyways, ciao.